Have you ever met someone who seemed almost impossible to shake? Not loud, not aggressive, not trying to dominate everyone around them, but calm in a way that immediately changes the energy in the room. While everyone else panics, they stay focused. While other people react emotionally, they think clearly, and somehow, without saying much, they make you feel like life has tested them far more than the average person. Most people think that kind of mental strength is something you're born with. It's not. A strong mind is trained, and unfortunately, so is a weak one. The problem is that most people are accidentally training themselves to become mentally fragile every single day. Not because they're lazy or unintelligent, but because modern life rewards behaviors that quietly destroy emotional resilience over time. Think about how most people live now. The moment they wake up, they consume stimulation before they've even had a single independent thought. Notifications, videos, messages, noise. Then the rest of the day follows the same pattern. Every uncomfortable emotion gets escaped immediately. Stress becomes scrolling, boredom becomes entertainment, anxiety becomes distraction, loneliness becomes dopamine. The brain never learns how to sit still anymore. And at first, this feels harmless. Comfort always does. That's why it's dangerous. Nobody notices mental weakness while it's developing, just like nobody notices physical weakness after skipping the gym for one day. But repeat small acts of avoidance for years, and eventually your mind loses its ability to handle pressure. One bad comment ruins your entire mood. One failure makes you question yourself. One stressful week completely destroys your discipline, not because you're weak by nature, but because your brain adapts to repetition. Whatever you repeatedly do becomes easier. Whatever you repeatedly avoid becomes harder. That means every time you instantly escape discomfort, your brain learns that discomfort is something dangerous. Over time, ordinary challenges start feeling emotionally overwhelming. And this is exactly why so many people today feel mentally exhausted despite living physically easier lives than almost any generation before them. Their minds never recover because they're constantly overloaded, constant stimulation, constant comparison, constant distraction, constant emotional reaction. Most people no longer control their attention controls them. And once emotions start controlling behavior, life becomes unstable very quickly. Because emotions constantly change. Some days you feel motivated, some days you don't, some days you feel confident, some days you feel insecure. If your actions depend entirely on temporary emotions, consistency becomes impossible. That's why mentally strong people are different. They stop organizing their lives around feelings, not because they are emotionless, but because they understand something most people don't. Your emotions should inform your decisions, not control them. That single shift changes everything. Because once your behavior stops depending on your mood, your life becomes far more stable. And stability is real power. That's why mentally strong people often have a certain presence to them. They don't desperately seek validation. They don't overreact constantly. They don't need to prove themselves every 5 minutes. They're grounded, and people feel that immediately. History is filled with people like this. Take Viktor Frankl. Before becoming one of the most influential psychologists in history, he survived Nazi concentration camps where nearly every external freedom was stripped away from him. And yet, after surviving conditions most people cannot even imagine, he wrote about one of the most important truths ever discovered about the human mind. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And inside that space is choice. That idea explains almost everything about mental strength. Weak minds react automatically. Strong minds pause before reacting. That pause is where emotional control exists. It's where discipline exists. It's where self-respect exists, and most people are losing that space completely. Everything today encourages instant reaction, instant dopamine, instant distraction, instant emotional release. The moment discomfort appears, people immediately try to escape it, But mentally, strong people train themselves differently. Not perfectly, intentionally. They learn how to sit with discomfort without immediately running from it. And over time, that changes their entire nervous system. Because once your brain realizes discomfort is survivable, your relationship with life changes completely. You stop hesitating so much. You stop panicking under pressure. You stop needing perfect conditions before taking action. You become harder to destabilize emotionally. That's real confidence. Not loud confidence. Not fake alpha male confidence. Quiet confidence. The kind built from evidence. Because confidence is not built through positive thinking. It's built through repeated proof that you can trust yourself under pressure. Every time you do something difficult instead of avoiding it, your brain collects evidence. Evidence that you can handle discomfort. Evidence that you can recover from failure. Evidence that difficult emotions do not control you anymore. And eventually, that evidence becomes identity. That's why discipline is so powerful psychologically. Most people think discipline is punishment. In reality, discipline is self-respect in action. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen trust in your own mind. Every time you abandon yourself the moment things become uncomfortable, that trust weakens. And over time, people either build internal trust or internal doubt. That difference shapes entire lives. Look at Nelson Mandela. 27 years in prison could have easily turned him bitter, hateful, emotionally broken. Instead, he came out with enough emotional control and clarity to help unite an entire country. That kind of strength does not come from comfort. It comes from repeatedly choosing who you want to become despite what life puts you through. And honestly, that might be the biggest difference between mentally weak people and mentally strong people. Weak minds ask, how do I avoid discomfort? Strong minds ask, what is this discomfort training me to become? Most people never become mentally strong because they spend their entire lives avoiding the very things that would strengthen them. Discomfort, uncertainty, rejection, failure, pressure, difficult conversations, being alone with their own thoughts. And the more you avoid those things, the more power they gain over you. That's why mentally weak people often live in constant reaction mode. Their emotions control their decisions. Stress destroys their focus. Criticism ruins their confidence. Small setbacks completely throw them off track. Not because they're incapable of becoming stronger, but because they never trained themselves to handle resistance. The mind works exactly like the body. If someone never exercises for years, even basic physical effort starts feeling exhausting. The same thing happens mentally. If you constantly avoid difficulty, your tolerance for difficulty shrinks. Eventually, ordinary life starts feeling overwhelming. That's why confidence is not something you think yourself into. Confidence is built through evidence. Your brain needs proof that you can handle difficult situations without collapsing emotionally. And that proof only comes from action. This is where most people get stuck. They wait to feel confident before taking action. But confidence usually comes after action, not before it. Take something simple like speaking up for yourself. The first difficult conversation feels terrifying. Your heart races. Your thoughts become chaotic. You overthink every word. So most people avoid it. And every time they avoid it, their brain learns, this situation is dangerous. The fear grows stronger, but eventually someone forces themselves to speak honestly despite the fear. And at first, it's awkward, imperfect, uncomfortable, but afterward, something important changes. Their brain now has evidence that discomfort did not destroy them. That's how mental strength actually develops. Not through motivation, not through watching self-improvement videos all day. Through repeated exposure to controlled discomfort. That's why action is so powerful psychologically. Action creates evidence. Evidence changes identity. A person who repeatedly proves to themselves that they can handle difficult things slowly becomes someone who no longer fears difficulty in the same way. And over time, that changes everything. Because once you stop fearing discomfort, your entire life expands. You take opportunities other people avoid. You recover faster from failure. You stop needing constant validation. You become harder to manipulate emotionally. And eventually, people start noticing something different about you. Not arrogance, not aggression, stability. That's what people actually admire. A calm person in a chaotic environment immediately stands out. Someone who doesn't emotionally collapse under pressure immediately stands out. Someone who can experience fear, stress, uncertainty, rejection, and still move forward feels rare now. Because emotionally reactive people have become normal, and emotionally grounded people have become unusual. Look at Abraham Lincoln. Before becoming one of the most respected leaders in history, he experienced a repeated failure. Business collapse, election losses, depression, personal tragedy. Most people would have interpreted those experiences as proof that they should stop trying. But mentally strong people interpret pain differently. They don't see struggle as evidence that they are weak. They see struggle as part of becoming stronger. That mindset changes the trajectory of an entire life. Because once failure stops feeling like a personal attack on your identity, growth accelerates massively. You stop protecting your ego so much, you become willing to fail temporarily in order to improve long-term. And that's where real self-respect begins. Not when life becomes easy. When you prove to yourself that difficult situations do not control your behavior anymore. That's why discipline is so important psychologically. Discipline is not just productivity. Discipline is the ability to act correctly despite emotion. Getting up when you said you would. Training when you don't feel motivated. Staying calm during frustration. Putting your phone away when your brain craves stimulation. Doing difficult work before escaping into entertainment. Telling the truth when lying would feel easier. Those moments seem small, but they slowly build an identity. Every action is a vote for the type of person you are becoming, and eventually those votes create someone completely different. Someone who trusts themselves. That's the real goal, because people who trust themselves move through life differently. They stop panicking every time something becomes uncertain. They stop abandoning themselves the moment progress becomes uncomfortable. They stop depending on motivation to save them. Deep down, they know, even when things get difficult, I will still move forward. That kind of internal certainty is powerful, not because it makes life painless, but because it removes helplessness. And helplessness is what destroys people psychologically. Once someone believes they can adapt, recover, improve, and continue moving forward, life stops feeling like something that happens to them and starts feeling like something they can participate in consciously. That's when real confidence appears. Quiet confidence. Grounded confidence. The kind that doesn't need to constantly announce itself. At the end of the day, building a strong mind is not about becoming emotionless or pretending nothing affects you. It's about becoming harder to control, harder for fear to control, harder for comfort to control, harder for distraction to control, harder for other people's opinions to control. Because once your inner state stops depending entirely on external circumstances, something strange happens. You become calmer, clearer, more focused, more resilient. And in a world filled with distracted, reactive, emotionally unstable people, that kind of grounded strength becomes impossible to ignore.